for the same question there would be 10 to 15 different approaches for solving the same problem. Probability का question दे दिया, 10 ऐसे 10 approaches तो easily मिल जाएंगे आपको solve करने के लिए. वो coding practice करेंगे 2 or 3 days before their interview. They will try and go through the problems and that 50 problems work. Yeah. And then they'll expect कि मतलब they do well, but then ऐसा नहीं होता.
Hey everyone, welcome to this video. As promised, today we have Parth Bakare and he has cracked the Quant profile in Quadeye and I think also in the Graviton. So he will be sharing his placement journey and how he prepared for the Quant profile. So let's welcome him and congratulate him for the cracking such a great job offer in such a hot company of India. So congratulations Parth and welcome to the show.
Very thankful to you, Mohan. Thanks for all the congratulations. I'd like to express my sincerest gratitude for having me on your show, giving me a platform to share my journey, share how I prepared for my interviews and all. And I feel very humble to know that people will be looking at this interview. They will be looking up to me for learning how they have to prepare for interviews, how they have to give their interviews. Very, very thankful for this opportunity.
Yeah, like on the internet, people can find multiple resources for the software engineering or related to that. But Quant profile is kind of hot topics these days in India, and there is no such kind of interviews or preparation strategy. So I think this video will be very much helpful for all of those people who are preparing for this. So in the brief, can you please tell us what are all the things that you did for your internship preparation?
Okay, so mostly I used to give contests on code forces. Apart from that, I used to practice on interview bit. I used to refer CP algorithms for standard algorithms and their executions. Yeah, and this is it. Most of it is, and very little for preparing core CS topics. I used to watch different playlists on YouTube. The most generic ones that are recommended to everyone. Nothing much apart from that.
Yeah, so did you prepare for the Quant profile during your interview, internship preparation?
Yeah, I did prepare a bit for it. There is a website called Brainstellar. It has lots of questions on it. I went through that during my internship preparation days. Yeah, that's all I did during my internship season to prepare for a Quant.
Okay, so in which company did you get the internship offer?
So I got my internship in a company called Nutanix. My designation was intern member of technical staff.
So you got the internship offer and that was a software profile I think in the Nutanix. So when did you decide for going to the Quant profile and why did you decide for that?
Okay, so after I completed my internship at Nutanix, I did not get a PPO at the end of it, and I had to start preparing for placements again. And back then, right from preparing for a Quant role, so when I just joined college, even after a year after joining college, even in my second year, I did not know about Quant roles and all that. Yeah. So even then, I was preparing for software roles. I started preparing for Quant roles in the placement season. The first time I got to know about it was during my internship days. But then I did not I was not shortlisted for any Quant role, so I could not get selected in any Quant role, and that's when I got the first hint there is something called a Quant profile. And
as you said, you started your preparation for the Quant profile after your internship gets over. So I think you got around 4 months of period before the placement. So what are all the things how you divided these 4 months for the preparation of Quant profile?
Okay. So as you said, there were 4 months for me to prepare: August, September, October, and November. So the first 2 months I did not do anything Quant specific. I made it a habit of giving code forces contests regularly. I tried to not miss even a single one. Then I used platforms I had already completed interview bit in my internship days, so I did not do interview bit at all for my placement preparation. I did practice a lot on lead code though. I had a habit of referring popular algorithms on CP algorithms very frequently. Apart from that, there is another website called CSES. I used it quite late, but I did get introduced to it in this 2-month period. I did CACS mostly in October. But I like to divide my placement preparation into two parts, the first 2 months and the last 2 months. So basically in the first 2 months, there was no specific practice for anything. I just like what everyone does. I give contests regularly, practice the weak topics in data structures and algorithms, and try to polish my skills in my strong topics as well. That's it. And then coming on to the final 2 months, so what changes in this final 2 months is that you start getting a good idea of the companies that would be coming in your campus for placements. You get a good idea of the pool of candidates that they would have to choose from. You get a good idea of knowing what your competition is. This is when you can actually start structuring. You can actually start planning which companies you want to target specifically, which companies you want to prepare specifically for, what kind of topics you need to give more attention to depending on what companies you prefer and all that. So in the final 2 months, I was able to do that. I had I did more target specific practice, and my chances of landing a quant role, I got to know my chances of landing a quant role during this final 2 months after getting to know that quant companies are coming to our campus and all that. So yeah, basically this is it. And for preparing quant specific practice, I did only for these 2 months, nothing before that.
You devoted 2 months of your time to the quant profile for preparation of that thing. So how did you divide it? What are the first question is, what are all the resources that you followed for the preparation of quant profile?
Okay, so mostly I used books for quant preparation. Like in software, you would hardly refer to books. Like obviously there are books that you can use, Competitive Programmer's Handbook or CLRS, a few standard books, but then you would mostly be using standard coding platforms for practice. This wasn't the case for quant. I had to go through books and in detail. So the first book that I used was, there is a book called 50 Problems in Probability. मेरे को exact नाम नहीं याद book का. Then there was another book that goes by the name of A Guide to Quantitative Financial Interviews. इसका भी मेरे को नाम नहीं याद. In fact, just before this interview or a podcast, whatever you call it, मैंने वो देखा था अपने फोन में, क्या exact नाम मैं भूल भी गया. Even if I have to refer that book to someone else, मैं बोला था वो green color का cover होगा वो वाली book, and it has a Chinese author. वैसे ही याद, I don't remember the exact book name and the exact author name. Then there is a third book called Applied Combinatorics by Alan Tucker. ये usually quant preparation के लिए लोग use नहीं करते, but I did use it because what I found. So the first two the books were they are. You will find that जो भी questions in दो books में जो मैंने पहले बताए, you will find that whatever questions are in those questions, there is a good chance that questions from those books will directly be asked in tests and interviews. मतलब पूछते ही हैं, मतलब आ ही जाते हैं. And कई बार ऐसा होता है कि if you are thorough with those books, आपको question का आंसर भी याद हुआ होगा, you won't even have to solve it. आपको options में दिख जाएगा, आप तुरंत वो मार्क करके बढ़ सकते हो. But the third book which I talked about, Applied Combinatorics, ये ज्यादा लोग यूज नहीं करते क्वांट के लिए. So यहाँ पे ऐसे questions होंगे ही नहीं that would be asked in your tests and interviews. But then what it helped me was it introduced me to new ideas of thinking. It introduced me to new approaches of solving problems, especially in probability and combinatorics. And ये quant वाले जो topics रहते हैं, mathematics, combinatorics, probability, they are such that it's all very related. Even for the same question, there would be 10 to 15 different approaches for solving the same problem. मेरा जो experience है while preparing for software interviews, even if there are multiple ways of solving a particular problem, वो इतने ज्यादा नहीं रहते. You will hardly find problems at least, मेरे को तो नहीं पता कि 3 या 4 से ज्यादा different techniques होंगे solve करने का. हाँ, but quant में ऐसा नहीं होता. For the same problem, कोई probability का question दे दिया, 10 approaches तो easily मिल जाएंगे आपको solve करने के लिए, most frequently. So going through this book, Alan Tucker, I got introduced to many different kinds of approaches for solving combinatorics questions, which is a very important topic while preparing for quant interviews. So, and getting introduced to these kinds of new thought processes while solving maths questions is very important while preparing for quant interviews. So, apart from standard books जो लोग आपको recommend करेंगे quant interviews के लिए, जहाँ से आपको questions directly पूछे जाएंगे, it is a good habit if you are exposed to other resources as well. जहाँ पे कुछ practices introduce होती है, जहाँ पे practices listed होती है, जहाँ पे इन सब की theory दी होती है, so you can get acquainted with these kind of approaches as well. And कहीं ना कहीं मतलब ये आपके thought processes को change करेंगे. That it will change your standard pattern of thinking, which is very important in quant interviews. Apart from that, I think मैंने mention किया था BrainSir करके एक website है. वो मैंने internship के time पे ही देख रखी थी काफी. I did not use it at all during my placement days. I think one of my friends even told me that जो green वाली book है और जो BrainSir है उसमें काफी similar questions भी है. So I did not use it.
That's great. Like, I think you have discussed all of the resources that you prepared. And can you please tell me, like, did you like solve all the problems of these two books that you mentioned that you focused more?
Okay, so the 50 problems, like as the name suggests, I don't think there are exactly 50 questions. There are 50 to 60 questions. And I went through each one of them, even if I wasn't able to solve them. I think at least 5 or 6 of them मेरे को अब तक समझ नहीं आया कि वो कैसे किए थे. But I ensured that I went through each one of them. Even the green colored book, there is उसमें एक section होगा that specifically focuses on finance and all. वो section I entirely left it out. Apart from that, I went through each and every problem that was in that book. There were a few topics like martingale and all जो मेरे को ठीक से समझ नहीं आए थे, but I still went through them. But I ensured that I went through each and every problem that was in those books. The third book, Alan Tucker Applied Combinatorics by Alan Tucker, वो बहुत बड़ी book है. I did not go through it entirely. Even the topics that I did go through, वो भी मैंने सारे questions, सारी चीजें नहीं पढ़ी थी. But I did go through a major chunk of it.
So yeah, so this was all the preparation part. So can you please tell me the coding round of the quant profile? So what are the expectations from the like interviewers in the coding round? Like what's the difficulty level of the problems?
Okay, so in coding round, I'll only speak for the companies that I appeared in which offered a quant role. So the coding test was divided into 2 sections mostly. An actual coding round where they ask you standard competitive programming questions, and another quant section where they ask you quant questions. Yeah. And mostly it would be mathematics and probability, hardly anything apart from it. And sometimes general aptitude questions as well. So as far as the coding questions are concerned, they were doable. Like within the time frame set by the companies, they were doable. Like there were companies which gave very difficult tests and I wasn't even able to think of a solution. There were tests where I wasn't able to do a single question. But in these companies, the coding round was doable. ऐसा नहीं है कि बहुत easy थे लोगों से हो गए, but it was doable. And as far as the quant rounds are concerned, it was a mix of difficult questions जो बहुत difficult होते हैं. वहाँ पे आपको बहुत मतलब you'll require manual ingenuity to think of approaches to solve that questions, and there would be questions which are easy जो आप but calculation intensive होंगे जो आपको time लगेगा करने में, and there would be questions if you have gone through the books I had mentioned जो directly वही से होंगे, आपको आंसर रटा हुआ होगा, आप तुरंत मार करके जा सकते हो. So in the quant section there would be a mix of all kinds of things, and because it is a quant role, obviously मतलब quant थोड़ा mix होगा ही, ऐसा नहीं होगा कि मतलब एक दो ही चीजें पूछेंगे.
So can you please like discuss about like what are all the things that you asked? Like, how was your like interview experience? Like what was the structure of that interview? Like what they expected from you?
Okay, so I won't be giving any explicit details for what they asked in interviews. So for the roles I appeared in, for the quant interviews I appeared in, mostly it was mathematics, mostly probability and combinatorics, a few other general aptitude questions as well, but mostly these topics only. A little bit of competitive programming as well, but not too much of it. And in some cases they might ask you certain core CS topics as well, like like DBMS, operating systems, networks, all of that, but it won't be the main highlight of your interviews. Mostly they focused on mathematics, probability, combinatorics, all of that.
How many interview rounds were there?
Okay, so for both the interviews I appeared in, there was only one round, but then it was different for different candidates. So it isn't something that should be fixated in your mind if you are appearing for interviews. It would be totally dependent whether it is an on-campus or an off-campus interview. I have heard that off-campus में there are multiple 6-7 round हो जाते हैं कई लोगों के. On-campus में भी there would be different number of rounds for different candidates, and even if there are different number of rounds, so मतलब ऐसा भी हो सकता है that one round went for twice as long as what it took for other candidates. So मतलब this shouldn't matter at all कि कितने rounds होते हैं.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, but like you discussed about the coding round and the interview round. So in the whole process, did you feel that there was the CPI was a kind of played a role in your selection?
Yeah, definitely. So at the end of my third year, मेरी CPI 8.78 थी, which was the CPI I had when I was appearing for campus placements. And 8.78 is a good CPI. मेरे को मतलब जिस भी कंपनी के लिए appear होना था, I was able to clear the cutoff. But then when I actually appeared for the interviews, मतलब 8.78 is a good CPI. It will help you clear almost all cutoffs. But then it isn't one of the best CPIs. And one thing you need to know about HFTs is that they usually hire only the toppers from computer science departments and other related departments. So 8.78 isn't a good CPI for, it isn't like, it is good, but then you won't be favored, you won't be given, so you won't have a good advantage if you are appearing for quant roles. So I did manage to get in, but I feel that at my CPI, I might be towards, my CPI would be towards the lower side if I compare it with the other students who got selected, and it does play an immense role in determining your candidature. Another thing is your JE rank as well. It also plays a role, but then these are very important things, but if you do well in your interviews, it will help compensate for that. But these things play a very important role in HFTs. Yeah.
Okay, so these are the like CPI and JE rank. Apart from this, like how much like CV isn't important for HFT companies? It is important for software jobs, but is it important for HFT? And if it is important, then how, like, on what extent?
Well, they did go through my CV once, but then they didn't ask too many questions about it. Like they only they asked me, अच्छा उनको कोई project दिख गया, उनको शायद समझ ना आया. मतलब I wouldn't be giving out too many details, but ऐसा नहीं कि वो CV जैसे तुम as you said मोहन कि सॉफ्टवेयर इंटरव्यूज में तो देखते ही है, एक दो प्रोजेक्ट के बारे में पूछ लेते हैं. They won't completely reject your CV, but मतलब ऐसा नहीं कि ignore कर देंगे, but they will have gone through your CV and मतलब उनको थोड़ा बहुत idea होगा मतलब, and it depends on the interviewer कि उसको पूछना है नहीं.
Is there anything else that you want to share for the people who are preparing for the quant profiles?
Yeah, so a very important thing. So what I'd like to share is that why I decided to practice specifically for a quant role. मतलब मेरा मतलब 2 weeks before my interviews, you need to know that on campus interviews में सारे companies के interviews same दिन पे होंगे.
Yeah.
So 2 weeks before that मैंने सिर्फ quant preparation किया था. I had completely left out practicing coding questions. जो CS topics है, core CS topics, networks, operating systems, वो entirely मतलब बिल्कुल भी नहीं देखा था. जो coding questions है वो एटलीस्ट फ्रेंड्स वगैरह के साथ बैठ के थोड़े बहुत डिस्कशन हो जाता था. core CS topics बिल्कुल छोड़ देता था. From my own end मैंने सिर्फ quant preparation ही किया था एटलीस्ट फॉर द फाइनल 2 weeks. Even from the 2 months out मोस्टली quant वगैरह ही करता था, थोड़ा बहुत सॉफ्टवेयर वगैरह भी प्रिपेयर कर लेता था. So what most people in our college do is that even if they have to appear for a quant interview, because software jobs are in such abundance, वो coding practice करेंगे 2 or 3 days before their interview. They will try and go through the problems in that 50 problems work, and then they'll expect कि मतलब they do well. But then ऐसा नहीं होता. The interviewers को तुरंत पता चल जाता है कि who has and who hasn't devoted extra efforts toward this. मैंने काफी बहुत ज्यादा अलग से effort डाला था towards this, and you'll have to put in this extra effort. You'll have to choose one over the other. You'll have to choose software or quant one over the other. Like ऐसा नहीं होगा कि आप सबको equal time दे रहे हो, ऐसा नहीं होगा. At least towards the end आपको कुछ एक prioritize करना पड़ेगा, and I did that, and I think that did play a role in doing well in the interviews. Apart from that, another thing I'd like to mention is that मैंने बोला कि मैंने पहले 2 months ही prepare किया होगा, internship के time BrainSteller website देख ली. But apart from that, ever since I was in school, मेरे को maths हमेशा से ही पसंद आया. ये ऐसा नहीं कि मतलब JEE में discover हुआ. Math has always been my favorite subject. Even after coming to college, I've still been interested in mathematics. मैं कुछ popular YouTube channels होंगे, 3B, 1B, Mind Your Decisions, all of that, those kind of channels. I have been subscribed to them for a very long time now. And even when I wasn't preparing for internship placement anything, मैं वो channels देखते रहता था because I've always had a good interest in mathematics. I haven't been the best at it. I haven't been even very good at it, but मेरे को interest हमेशा से ही रहा है mathematics में. And that kind of helped me. Like मतलब even when I felt that कि मतलब मेरा quant role में I won't be selected, I still did it because interest था मेरे को. अगर वो software role होता, if I felt that अगर मैं select नहीं होने वाला, I would have stopped preparing for it. But quant के लिए, because I've always been interested in mathematics, मैं फिर भी कर लेता था. And ultimately that did help me. Like वो मतलब एक unrelated question भी होगा, the kind of ideas that you thought then, वो कहीं ना कहीं role play करता है. And I feel that my interest, I don't know if the interviewer was able to catch on to it, but I feel that मेरा जो अलग interest था, if I compare myself to an average IITian in my college, I don't think बाकी लोगों को मेरा जितना interest होगा mathematics में. And I feel this was one of the biggest factors in my journey, that because I was always very interested in it, even if I wasn't good at it, मैं देखते रहता था. मतलब even topics that aren't asked in quant interviews, algebra, geometry, all of that, interest मेरे को हमेशा से ही रहा है. And I think this was one of the biggest factors that set me apart from other candidates.
Thank you, Parth, for coming to the show. This will be really helpful for those people who are preparing for the quant profile, and even for the internships and for the placements. So I hope they will get benefit out of it. And if you want to see how you can prepare for the system profile, so there are 2 profiles. This was for the quant profile, and if you want to look for the system profile, you can find the link in the description and also on the I button on the above. So have a nice day. Bye bye.